voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. We got a lot to get to tonight and we're going to dive right in. So make sure you guys like the stream down below and make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you are new. We'll be getting to the super chats eventually, so if you guys have any questions or comments or concerns for yours truly, feel free to send them in and we're going to get to them some point during the stream. But I get a lot of comments, a lot of concerns about the election and where are we? What is the state of the 2024 race? And I'm declaring a complete and total shutdown on dooming until we can figure out what the hell is going on, because you have so many people that they don't know how to react to, I don't know, polls moving 1 point in the other direction because Democrats are energized. And I'm not even saying it's all response bias, but I am saying a lot of it is. A lot of it is, this is not a sustainable surge for Kamala Harris. Already the past week nationally, we've only seen 2 polls that were released. If we could pull up the numbers here, they're right on the screen. So you have approximately, only 1 poll. It was Rasmussen, to be fair. But you saw 2 polls that were released recently this week. CNBC, Democrat-aligned poll, Trump up by 2 nationally. Rasmussen, Trump up by 5. New York Times released some swing state polls showing Donald Trump is a little bit underwater in the Rust Belt. Wow, that's never happened before in an election cycle. Do people not remember 2016 or 2020? Because so many people will say, but 2024, Trump was leading them. Now he's trailing. And here's the deal. These polls are likely suffering from that response bias because there's no way that Kamala Harris is winning on the issue of immigration over Trump. There's no way she's winning on the economy over Trump, like we're seeing in some of these polls. And when you look into the educational demography of it, there's no way she's getting 40% of working class white men in the Rust Belt. There's no way. I'll delete my channel if that happens. That's how confident I am that she's not going to be pulling those numbers. She's not even likely at the end of the day going to get 2020 Biden numbers. There's a long way to go for sure. But the truth is that this is her peak. And the pollsters, once again, especially in some of these swing states, they're not doing their job properly because the data just does not add up. And that's what I've been saying. And that's what the evidence is really pointing towards right now. Does that mean that everything is perfect? No. Does that mean that there's zero concerns about the election? It's going to be close. It's going to be closer probably than it should be because Democrats, they've got their base now. They've got their base. They've got them energized. They're out there. They're doing what they need to do. And we have to counter them. And to do that, Trump needs to be on the campaign trail. You know, he had a good week, underratedly speaking. He had a great rally in Montana. He raised $30-some million within a couple of days at some fundraisers. That stuff doesn't get talked about, even though that's a lot of money that could be poured into Pennsylvania and Georgia, 2 states Donald Trump desperately needs in order to just win the election. If he gets those 2, it doesn't matter what happens in 4 of those 5 swing states, assuming he gets North Carolina. So I look at the polls. Trump's in a good position overall. You know, Harris is on her sugar high. We haven't even seen that much national polling, but already it's wearing off. She's ripping off Trump's policy, and we saw this. We did an entire video about it, but you don't do this if you're winning. And we know their internal numbers, according to David Axelrod, according to many other people, they're not so good. But you have people acting like Trump is going to get like landslided on the left. Their hubris is back. On the right, they weren't dooming in 2020. I didn't see this level of dooming anywhere. I don't know where these people came from, but it was like, I don't care. Trump's down 11 points. He's still going to go out there. He's still going to win this thing. Now he's basically in a dead heat tie nationally, which would be considered miraculous in 2020 or any election cycle, and people think the house is on fire. Now, I'm not saying that Trump shouldn't change a couple things, and we could talk about that. I think he should do more rallies. Do I believe he's waiting for the DNC? Yes. Do I think that he should probably, talk a little bit less about certain stuff like the AI crowd? Yeah, because that's not entirely the full story of Kamala's crowd. She's getting crowds, folks. Whether you like it or not, she's getting crowds. That one picture was AI, but she has a few big crowds. Sometimes it's because she gets an entertainer to show up, but she's starting to actually get people out because she energizes the far left. If you look through the crowd, it's exactly who you think. It's the SJWs. It's the, whatever JD Vance said, childless cat ladies, quote unquote. That's literally who's in the audience. It's probably 85% women. They're all like millennials. And I mean, a lot of these people were likely going to vote for Biden regardless. They're a very high propensity voting demographic. But still, them being more enthused to vote for Harris does not necessarily mean that Harris is going to be more likely to win. Nobody was enthused for Biden in 2020. And yeah, there were shenanigans, but there were a lot of people that voted for him just so they could stop Trump. With Harris, it's very similar, except she is alienating independents in the process because when the far left ever gets energized, whether if it was for Bernie Sanders, for BLM, for defund the police, for all these, nonsensical proposals, when they get energized, the independents don't side with them. They don't, whether it was the Abolish ICE movement, you name it. Kamala Harris is pandering to the left. That's what she's doing. And apparently she's trying to do this like dual campaign where she's flip-flopping. Oh, I support the border. But then she comes out in Arizona, supports amnesty. Like, that's not something that's a winning issue in this day and age. Oh, we're going to take all these people over the past 4 years that come in. The average independent does not support amnesty for them. I know polls 10 years ago would show the opposite, but the difference is that these people are new arrivals. You've doubled the illegal alien population in this country during this administration. People are getting red-pilled on immigration. People want them out. And that's a big, big factor. And that's one of the number one reasons why Donald Trump is likely, in my opinion, still going to win this election is because of the border. Harris is ducking debates. She's running to the left. She picked a far left VP who's a lunatic. I mean, you talk about weird. This guy's insane. He's putting tampons in boys' bathrooms in elementary schools. I mean, he's going out there, and his wife during the BLM riot said she would open up the windows so she could take in the aroma of the smoke of the fires because, it's the people. Like, what is she doing? The city's on fire. Like, these are not normal people. It's up to us to communicate that message to people and not really take our eye off the ball. And I think Trump needs to do more events. I think that maybe he does need to, get out there a little bit more. He's going back to Twitter. Or X. He's doing something with Elon Musk on X. I don't know if he's posting, but he should post. And he should post the truth posts that will probably reach voters and things that are actually gonna make a difference. Because, if he's gonna do these posts, X, Y, and Z, the grievance posting, it's not really gonna lose him a lot of support, if any support. But I do feel like that's a waste that could be used on something else that will help bring them across the finish line. And a lot of critiques of the campaign managers from both wings of the right, which is bizarre. You have this bizarre alliance formed between the far right and then the establishment, pushover right, a lot of these neocons for different reasons. If there is a criticism, it's like, if you want Trump to be more measured, fine, I get it. I think the messaging's actually been really good, but probably make sure he can regulate some sort of the postings he does, because if you want to, you got to pick a lane here. You're gonna end up running into some problems, but it doesn't matter. Trump is the favorite regardless. Just because you see a polling bump here and there, this is how things work. It's how the elections run. You see ups and you see downs, but it always goes back to baseline. If you want to look at 2020, we could look at 2020, this time in history. Biden led by 7.2. Clinton led by 6.9%. Biden in October led by double digits. Harris is not going to be doing that, okay? And 2020 was a neck-and-neck election. Everybody knows it. It took miraculous stuff and possible shenanigans to get Biden over the finish line days after the election, after an economic downturn, a recession. You have the country on fire. You have a lot of things going wrong. You got a global pandemic. They're blaming Trump for millions of people dying unjustly. But you look at it, you saw how close that election was, and you're like, oh, Trump is in a really bad spot now. Why? Because Harris is gaining in some polls? Because of something that's still a glorified sugar high? She's been the nominee for 3 weeks. We have 13 weeks to go before the election. Republicans are still gaining in the actual registration data in every key swing state that tracks it. And that's not everything. But even in like every county in Pennsylvania, every county in Nevada, every county in Arizona, even the blue counties, Republicans are gaining. So yes, it's true that the polls are looking a little murky, but people need to take a step back and just relax. We could go through the battlegrounds. Trafalgar, they were actually on 100% accurate in their August polls for the most part in 2022. They came apart at the seams later on. But look at the polls in August. They got Arizona's Senate race right. They got Nevada right. They got Pennsylvania right. They had Oz down by 4. They got North Carolina's Senate race margin right. I think that they underestimated the Republicans even. But you look at their polling, he's up in Arizona. He's up in Nevada. He's up by 3 there. You look at some of these other polls we see, North Carolina. There's a poll that came out today. It's a Democrat internal. They can't even get Harris up in North Carolina. And people want to say this poll's bad for Trump. How is it bad for Trump? It's a Democrat internal, and even then, it's a dead heat tie. And there's many problems with that poll. So all the dooming, it just does not add up to me. Pennsylvania, Trump leads in Pennsylvania. He never led in Pennsylvania in 2020. He never led in Pennsylvania in 2016 or Wisconsin or Michigan. But right now, even then, Wisconsin's a dead heat. Polls underestimate him by an average of 6-7 points in Wisconsin on record, 2016, 2020. I don't think they're going to do that again. But yes, I do believe that he's going to take Wisconsin by a couple of points. Harris is not a good fit for the white working class, and Donald Trump is reorienting his messaging to target those voters, talking about immigration, talking about the economy, talking about the American dream. That's what he needs to do, and Biden does not have those connections. So what you're seeing right now is something, but it's something that might be a little unsustainable. It's a little unsustainable. I think everybody knows that by now. This is an election that will be close. I'm not going to deny it. It will be a close race. It'll be a close election. Overall, every election's going to be close. Doesn't matter who you put up on the Democrat side, because you got a lot of NPCs in this current society. And on the contrary, you have a lot of people in the diehard Trump base that'll show up regardless. So we got to do our part. But I see a lot of panic. I see a lot of people that are going out there. They're hitting the panic button unjustly. It's not doing us any favors. It's not. I see people just complaining. Why aren't you phone banking? Get off Twitter. Like the Turning Point USA, the TP Action, there's an app for people to call people in states. Download it. Download it tonight. Download it after the stream, pause the stream, download it, come back if you want to help out. There's so many things that you can do, but people complain and then they wonder why they're losing momentum. It's because you spend more time complaining than attacking Kamala Harris. It's not just these, very niche Twitter people. There's also people that are big names, like Tim Pool, for example. I see a lot of doom on his end. And like I said, I'm not saying there are not legitimate critiques or knocks or whatever on any campaign, even winning campaigns. I mean, Harris's campaign, if it's really winning, there's a lot of subject matter there to attack that on in terms of competence, and I don't really believe they're really all that ahead. Maybe nationally by a tad, but not in the swing states that are going to matter, and that may be temporary. But the New York Times poll was just garbage. Even David Axelrod is saying it's garbage because he's seen the Democrat internals, and they don't look good. They don't look good for them. So either way, you look at the polling data, it's not bad. It could be better, but it's not bad, especially given how the same people complaining now are saying that Biden's going to go out there and he's going to flip Texas this year and Georgia's not even going to be competitive, and Donald Trump is up in Georgia. He's currently up in Georgia, not by much. In the polls, they've tightened, and that's a little understandable because I think that's a state that Harris might have a unique point of strength in. I still think Trump is probably going to win it at the end of the day because, again, you're seeing kind of a shift in the momentum in terms of response bias, things like that, because you talk about who's answering the polls. We know that things are changing. Just because Harris, if you want to look at the Trump v. Harris polls back, 3 3-4 weeks ago, Trump was beating her by about the same margin he was beating Biden. In some places, he was beating her by more than that. So we'll have to see how it shakes out. But this instant rush to doom when things are kind of plateauing for Harris and Trump is still neck and neck in all the swing states, just people need to chill out. Trump is not going to do events, en masse until the DNC. Maybe it's because he is waiting to see what happens. Maybe we'll see if there's going to be riots there at the DNC. It'd be smart for Trump to stay out of the spotlight. But we have really yet to see what's going to happen with the Palestine people, the Hamas crowd. Are they going to stage some sort of thing in Chicago? It's entirely possible. Harris has done everything she can to pander to those people. They're still interrupting her events. And while I think she'll do better with like Muslims in Dearborn than Biden at this point would, because her name is a little bit less attached and she's had a history of being a little bit more sympathetic to the Palestine side than Biden, I don't know if it's exactly going to pan out in their favor, because a lot of these people, it will never be enough for them, because the people on the far, far left, they're crazy. They are. But so are the people panicking over polls like this. Newswire, garbage organization, comes out. Harris leads Trump 46-46. That's not a lead. That's a tie. Okay, it wasn't even like 46.2 to 46.1. It's a tie. It's a dead heat tie. Seriously, these people need to chill. Just stop with the panic. Seriously. It's like Trump was down by 8 in North Carolina in September. I said 2020. It was actually 2019, but he was down by 4 in North Carolina in August of 2020. This time, 2020, he won the state by 1-2. North Carolina early polls typically overestimate Democrats by a lot anyways, and Trump is tied in a Democrat internal, and you're dooming about North Carolina? Like, seriously, come on. Let's be real. We saw a lot of polls with Ted Budd. He was tied in 2022 for a little bit, and the polls at the end of the day ended up overestimating him, but still, he ended up winning by more than what the poll showed in a time like August, for example, when they had him only up by like 1, or it was a dead heat tie. So you're seeing that. And in terms of J.D. Vance, because Trump's not out there in the media as much these past few weeks, but it's funny because the same people complaining about that were saying Trump should do less events, Trump should do the basement strategy. Now it's Trump should do more events. Where is Trump? People can't have it both ways. I tell people this all the time. You can't have it both ways. I'd like to see Trump do more rallies. I think he will start doing more rallies eventually. The DNC is going to be taking place in 10 days. He's probably going to do 2 rallies or so in that time frame. He'll do other events. He's, meeting with Elon Musk on this Twitter thing. I don't know if it's going to be in person or if it's going to be, interview or a Twitter space. We really have yet to determine what that's going to be, but that's huge. Elon's got a big platform. He's got a cult following of his own, and you want to be able to have that on your side, and you're going to have a lot of people tuning in. And Trump should use, in my opinion, Twitter for certain things. I think he should post like his campaign type of even just screenshot the truth if he can and post it to Twitter. That would definitely be huge overall. But you look at J.D. Vance, he's out there. And he went on, and he went off on 3 different networks hosts. They were interviewing him. They were pressuring him, in many cases with the similar questions, very hard questions, and he just dominated. Like, there's no way to spin it. The J.D. Vance critics who did not want Donald Trump to pick this guy were even saying, you know what, this guy's very smart, he's very high IQ, he's very capable, and he is. Tim Walz is a midwit. He's a fraud. J.D. Vance is going to go out there on that debate stage and just eviscerate the guy. And everybody knows it. People that are skeptical of J.D. Vance, when they see that debate take place, it's going to be a 180. Which, again, I don't even think that many people are. You look at the approval polls of Vance, it's like 46% disapprove. Okay, well, that's like all the Harris voters. It's mainly Trump voters that are just unsure. And it's true, he doesn't add much electorally as of now, in my opinion, to the ticket, but I don't really believe he takes away electorally. And he's an asset to Trump in a way, and he could add electorally if he's able to go out there and do this. And the more exposure he gets, the better it's getting for him. Initially, they do the dirt drop. They try to make him unpalatable. That would have happened to any VP choice that Donald Trump could have made. It would have probably been a lot worse if he went with some of these other options too, to be fair. But you have the dirt drop, and then slowly the pendulum swings back. And then you find out the stolen valor with Tim Walz. You find out a lot of other stuff. And you're seeing what's happening right now in the media when Vance goes in the spotlight. I mean, I could play some of these clips. This is like a compilation, and we could kind of just go through this here.
Dana, I criticized his lying about his own record, okay? This is a guy who was captured on video saying, I carried a gun to war. He never went to war. This is a guy who's been captured on video. As other people say, he's an Afghanistan veteran. He's a veteran of a war, nodding along in agreement instead of saying, no, I did serve my country and I did it honorably, but I never went to a war zone. I'm not criticizing Tim Walz's service. I'm criticizing the fact that he lied about his service for political gain, Dana. You've now asked me 3 questions about Kamala.
See, already you talk about the first part of this compilation here. He's going off. Tim Walz lied. He lied. He said that he went out there and he said that he was an Afghanistan veteran. He said that he carried guns in war. He never went to war. Like, the guy's a liar. And Vance is somebody that can go out there, articulate the message well, call him out. What is he going to do? And Walz, there's so much other dirt on him. Apparently, he said about they say he's like a rural guy, rural whisperer. He's doing worse than Biden in 2022 in the rural areas. That's not very easy to do, especially in a midterm year that was pretty good for Democrat incumbent governors across the country who ran against weak candidates, and he did not do well himself. But when we talk about JD, or we talk about Tim Walz, what did he say about the rural areas? He said, it's just cows and rocks. And then he's confronted about it. Oh, they cut the tape. I was saying it's much more than that. No, they did not they did cut the tape, but that does not fit the given context. He's a fraud. He's a total fraud. And he's a weirdo, which is ironic because all they do is project. But let's keep playing this.
Comments that I made 3 years ago. I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she supported policies that opened the American southern border. I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she lied to the American people about Joe Biden's mental facility for the office. You are interviewing me, Dana, because I respect the American people enough to sit down for an interview.
I appreciate that.
Kamala Harris has been the nominee for 3 weeks. She hasn't sat down for a real interview.
Believe me, we are asking. You're not
going
to
but the point is, Dana, you've got me.
You see how he spins it. Already they're asking him, oh, well, you said this 3 years ago. He's like, who cares? Let's talk about the current issues. Sarcastic comment. He brushes it aside, and then he pivots. And then everybody's thinking about Kamala Harris is a fraud. She's flip-flopped, and she's not talking in front of the media. That's the real problem here. And it's true. It is the real problem. And if you want to talk about strange statements about the childless people, Kamala Harris is somebody that's floated the idea, and I think Vance touched on this in the interview. She's floated the idea of people having less kids because of climate change and climate hysteria. So it is fair game to attack her. She doesn't have kids of her own, at least biological kids. Vance isn't like bringing this up as a current attack line, but what he said was true. You have people that don't have children that are lecturing families, and they are leading the country off a cliff. They don't have skin in the game. They don't. I'd rather have leaders that do. I'm not saying you can't be a decent politician if you have never had children, but I've never had children, but it's true. I have less skin in the game than somebody like Vance, for example, in that department. That's okay. I'm not going to be offended by it for obvious reasons, but
for 15 minutes or however long you have me, we should be talking about public policies that matter. How are we going to lower inflation? How are we going to reduce the cost of food and housing? How are we going to close down that southern border? We've talked so little about that. We've talked a lot more about a sarcastic remark I made 3 years ago. I think we should talk about the issues that most Americans care. Kamala Harris is whatever she says she is, but I believe importantly that President Trump is right that she's a chameleon. She pretends to be one thing in front of one audience. She pretends to be something different in front of another audience. Look, Dana, she's not running a political campaign. She's running a movie. She only speaks to voters behind a teleprompter. Everything is scripted. She doesn't have her policy positions out there. She hasn't answered why she wanted to ban.
And he's right. It's not a campaign. It's a turnout operation for the Democrats. They're trying to salvage themselves. And maybe they hope that, doing the basement strategy will work. They probably are hoping that they win. But I think it's largely a facade, and she is a chameleon. Trump is right. She would tout herself as mainly a part of her Indian heritage and Indian side of things. And then when it was politically convenient, when she got to the Senate, ran for president, Trump said she magically turned black. And yeah, she is technically both. That's true. But, she will do these things. She grew up in Canada with her Indian mother in, I don't think, Vancouver. And then she goes to Georgia and she talks like she's a black lady from the South when she's not. And everybody knows it. It's fake. Just like her stealing Trump's policies with no taxes on tips. It's all fake. She's a fraud. She's a fraud who wants to turn America into a third world country. We cannot allow that to happen. And Vance calls her out and just articulates. See, Trump is not always somebody that will be the most well-spoken in the eyes of a lot of these, like, I don't know, suburbanite people, some people like to say. But Vance is. That's the thing they don't understand. They're trying to paint him as a villain, in part because they're scared of Vance, because they know Vance is smart. And he's articulating everything Trump is basically saying in a very skilled manner, better than Mike Pence did, because Vance is much smarter than Pence. And Vance actually wants Trump to succeed more than Pence did, who was more just in it for himself. So you kind of see that.
And fracking, but now she doesn't. She wanted to fund police, but now she doesn't. She wanted to open the border, but now she doesn't. She should have to answer for why she presents a different set of policies to one audience and a different set of policies to another audience. And I think that's what President Trump is getting at. This is a fundamentally fake person. She's different depending on who she's in front of.
And it's true. I mean, what word salad is she going to go out there and give? She comes off like she's like a drunk, like wine ant on Xanax the entire time. And that's not exactly, I mean, somehow that might be relatable to like certain women, I guess. But in terms of like trying to articulate how you're going to lead the most powerful nation in the world, in many cases, when she talks, she comes off as less able to complete a sentence than Joe Biden does, because all she does is talk in these word salads. But when she's on teleprompter at a rally and gives the same 30-minute speech over and over and over again, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
And I criticize people for not having kids. I criticize people for being anti-child. And I do think that Kamala Harris has made some bizarre statements. She has said things like, it's reasonable not to have children over climate change. I think it's the exact opposite message we should be sending to our young families. I want to expand the child tax credit. I want to stop those surprise medical bills. I want to make housing more affordable so that if you have a young family, you can actually afford to put them in a home. And I think that it is unfortunate that so much of our public leadership has become anti-family. One final point on this, Dana. If you go back to the COVID era, one thing that really frustrated me, please.
Are you going to debate Tim Walz?
Of course. I want to debate Tim Walz. I think it's important. And I think that it goes to a very fundamental difference between the Trump-Vance ticket and our opposition. We believe in talking to the media. We believe in answering questions. We believe in debating. I think it's really important. I mean, look, I'm asking the American people to make me their vice president. It's really important to stand before the American people to make that case, and I'm going to keep on doing it in whatever form I get the opportunity.
So we look forward to it. Thank you so much for sitting.
See, already, you see him going. He decimates the media. He knows how to play their game. A lot of people will fold under pressure. And Vance is somebody, he got a lot of heat from the beginning. He was not my first choice either. People like blame me. It's like, oh, look what Trump's doing. It's like, I didn't make the pick. But I didn't even think he should have been the pick initially. But I like Vance. I defend Vance. I don't think he's like a backstabber like some people. But I didn't think the pick would add the most electorally. But I will say that it's got a lot of hate that's undeserved as well. Because the guy does add a lot. He is a Marine. And he didn't lie about his service, unlike the other guy. I think against somebody like Tim Walz, yeah, Vance is the guy that could actively paint him as the fraud that he is, and it would stick. And the guy's IQ is like through the roof. I mean, probably 150 north of that. I mean, the guy graduated top of his class in 2 years from Ohio State. That's a good school. But then he goes to Yale Law School. That is not an easy school to get into, especially if you are, not in one of these URM type of people. The underrepresented minorities is what they call them in the law school process of admissions. But I mean, the guy probably got a perfect LSAT score. That is not easy to do. He knows how to handle these things, and he's not a bad speaker at all. I mean, it's true. He needed to find his footing, but you see him at the rallies now. You see him in front of the media. The guy's a star. He's becoming a star. And by the time the election rolls around, he's going to find his footing even more than he's found it already, which is far greater than where he was a few weeks ago, which even then I thought he was overhated. A lot of politicians are not going to have Trump's charisma, but he went from like a, very, I guess you'd say maybe below average charisma for somebody as a politician. Now he's got a decent level, I'd say even above average, and I think it's just going up there significantly, especially for a number two. Some people will say he's not top of the ticket material. He doesn't have to be. We could cross that bridge when we get there, 2028, that primary if Vance runs or whoever the potential nominees are going to be. But as of right now, Vance is just killing it. He's going out there and decimating the media, and you love to see it. You love to see it. He definitely wants to win. He definitely wants to win. You cannot take that away from him. He's making adjustments. He's making sure he can go to as many rallies as possible, do the rounds in the media. How many Sunday shows did he do? CNN, I think it was ABC and CBS. Tough questions, hit it out of the park every time. You absolutely love to see it. You would never see Kamala Harris. You would never see Tim Walz go on Fox, One American News, and Newsmax all in the same day. It would never happen because they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it. They have nothing to run on but lies, including their own records, by the way. They're running from it, too. So we got stuff to get to. We got stuff to get to for sure here. That includes super chats. So we will answer them. Let me see. We got a lot of them. So let's get to them. Let's get to these super chats. Johnny Heart Dog starting off the show saying, I think Trump's easiest path to 270 is Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona. I think he has a better shot with those three than Georgia and Pennsylvania. Well, I think Georgia, it just depends on the turnout. It's a state that's either going to be really easy for Trump to flip, or it's going to be a state that is kind of going to be more difficult, in my opinion, less elastic. So it just depends on the turnout level on both sides. Also for 10, Johnny Heartdog says, I always thought Vance would be a good pick, but not the best. Now I think he's the best pick. Have you heard the rumors that Biden will crash the DNC, say he's still in and demand the delegates? It's hard to filter out all the rumors. I doubt it. I mean, the guy is senile. I don't think he's going to do it. But he admitted today in his interview, he finally did one, that the Democrats essentially just threatened him to step aside. He admitted it. And it's not like anybody cares because we all know it's true, but these people will do anything possible to win or at least to save face at a very minimum. That's what it tells me. Tyler Jump, thank you for becoming a member. Holtzy says, we need the 2016 Trump back, oppose Israel. Don't be afraid to get accused to be far right. There's no reason he should be against Project 25. Here's the deal with this, and I get these super chats quite a bit. Donald Trump never opposed Israel. There is a lot of revisionist history going around by some bad faith actors on certain areas of the internet where they're telling people to be demoralized, to not support Trump because of positions that Trump never had. They will critique the 2024 RNC for having a Sikh prayer, but the 2016 one did too. They said nothing. They're like, oh, the RNC's coming apart at the seams. It's selective. It's selective and it's done on purpose for some nefarious reason. I don't know what this is. Now, Trump has never opposed Israel, and it would be political suicide for him to oppose Israel, given the amount of conservatives and evangelicals that support Israel, whether you agree with them or not, and the donors that Trump has in his corner as well are typically pro-Israel. So no, he's not going to do that because that's political suicide, plain and simple. Now, in terms of getting accused of being far right, I don't think he really is. He's further right than ever in regards to his deportation stances, which are now more popular. And Project 2025, I don't think people understand. Look, I think that it's something that I tend to support what it's trying to do. They want to staff Trump's administration with solid people because the last administration was not staffed with solid people. That part I agree with. The problem is they've attached a document to it that's got a lot of unpopular things in it, and it's become a headache for Donald Trump. So Trump distancing himself from it, that's probably the smart thing to do. Now, his campaign manager going out there and throwing a temper tantrum about luggage that's got the Project 2025 thing on it, yeah, I think that's counterproductive. I agree. That's stupid. But this whole notion of he needs to embrace this thing that's unpopular that basically supports a national abortion ban. He never supported one of those. It's never been a part of the GOP platform. Trump got that accomplishment done. I get the need to demand more, but the way to demand more that's effective is at the state level. Should be mad at Wyoming for not banning abortion, not mad at Trump for taking a position that he's never had that would not help, that would basically guarantee Harris wins with a sizable majority, and you would probably see Roe v. Wade go back into effect. Do you want to see that? The answer is no. That's what I'm telling people. So 2016 Trump is not going to come back because he's not 69, 70 years old. But the policies and the substance and the message, I'd say if you want to say that 2016 was at a 10 out of 10, 2020 was like a 5. Now we're probably like at an 8 or a 9, and people are complaining. Like, we're going to take what we can get. But the fact is that he's surrounding himself with, in my opinion, it's going to be with better people, especially just based off of the fact that he's got a VP. You know, Pence did a lot of the staffing. Now you have a VP who has got a more, nationalistic vision for the country, but some people will find some bizarre reason to be mad at him as well because, he didn't support Trump in 2016. Even though a lot of these people complaining don't even support Trump now when we need him to win more than ever. So that's kind of the issue. Tyler Jump, thank you for, I think we did that one. Greg Shirk says, your confidence calmed my nerves. Well, it's not even confidence, it's just reality. There's no need to panic is the main issue. People are acting like the house is on fire. It's like you guys can't handle a little bit of pressure because they changed their candidate. They should be up by 12, 13 points, if anything, just given the fact that they finally have a little bit of energy. And we'll see where it is. If the polls are the way they are now, a month from now, I'll say the election's probably 50-50. But as of right now, I still think it's like 60-40 Trump's to lose. So let's see. Brandon Sikora says, polls mean nothing. It's political crap. How do you see the DNC going in Chicago? Some of the MSM are saying that the RNC... Exactly. If the mainstream media is forced to say the RNC is it was world class. I mean, it was. It was a well put together, well organized convention, very on message, and people want to pick it apart on both wings of the, I'd say both extremes of the GOP, because that's kind of what even though I think that both are really not really a part of the GOP, but that's beside the point. Johnny Heartdog for 20 says, I have a tendency to doom. I try not to, but it's hard. I think a lot of that is rooted in mistrust of the system. By the way, I changed my percentage of giving both Harris and Trump 50-50. Anyone's election make it. Well, I think that's a good way of looking at it. By and large, I think that's not a bad way. It is going to be a close election, and people need to get off their ass and do something about it. I'm going to tell people that. I'm not going to say it's over, and I'm not going to say, it's done, we're going to win. Because we might not. We could lose. We absolutely could lose. We don't want to lose. We want to make sure we can win. I think there's a very good chance Harris just implodes, and there's already signs of that happening. I mean, she got a big fundraising haul like at the onset of her campaign. How sustainable is that going to be down the stretch? That's another question. But we'll see about that. Ash K2 says, in 84 there were Reagan Democrats, and in 2024 there are Harris Republicans. No, he is wrong. There's no Harris Republicans. There's not a single Harris Republican that did not back Biden. And there's going to be a lot less than that back Biden in the real world. So once again, the internet is not real life. Evan Danagalt for 10 says, why isn't Trump campaigning? In air quotes, doomers say Trump can take a break and wait until the DNC. Harris is far less likable than 2020 Biden. My mom was a Biden voter and will be voting Trump because of Kamala. I hear a lot of these stories. I mean, I hear a lot of anecdotes from people, and their anecdotes, they're not necessarily going to be definitive, but it's like I hear people say, well, my coworkers wanted Biden, but now they're going to, especially I hear actually with young black males that we're going to vote for Biden. Some of them won't vote for Kamala because they think, she's locked a bunch of people up for weed and laughed about it. That Tulsi Gabbard debate definitely defined her image quite a bit, and even a lot of people's eyes on the left. But I mean, I hear people saying, well, my parents were undecided, but now because Kamala's the nominee, they're going to vote for Trump. There's very few people switching, in my opinion, from Trump to Kamala. Why would you? What's wrong with you? Maybe you don't like the way Trump is acting or whatever. That's one thing, but that's an online take by and large, because nobody's paying attention as much as these people are in the real world. And once again, if they were, concerned about Trump, something about Trump, that doesn't mean they're going to jump ship to the other side. They may go undecided for now, but that doesn't mean, even if they do jump to Kamala, are they going to stick with Kamala when Kamala gets hit? Why would any Republican, and there are Republicans that will be voting for Kamala, but they're brain dead, and they're not in a significant number, and they did not back Trump in 2020. Like the people say, I will vote for Kamala. You're a clown. Is what you are. There's nothing conservative about you. If you don't like Trump, it's one thing. I understand why somebody might not. But voting for Kamala Harris, you're just a TDS patient at that point. If you happen to be on the right, you should be put in a mental institution. I'm serious. Like, there's just no explanation for it because you're not conservative. Just admit that you're not. Just admit that you have no principles except hating Trump, because that is what would happen if you support Kamala Harris. We had 4 years of Trump. It was a great presidency, all things considered. Maybe it could have been better. We got hit with the China, the Wuhan virus, the Kung flu, as Trump put it. And things kind of went, it wasn't necessarily Trump's fault that they went south, but they definitely, the country was in turmoil in 2020, and he definitely got, presidents get blamed for that stuff regardless of who they are. John Waffle for 10, as I'm trying to currently convert never Trump Republicans. Unfortunately, these people are mindless drones and don't seem to care that the country is screwed if Kamala wins, because a lot of them are just clowns. If you're talking about on social media, you're probably not going to convert a lot of these people. They don't get it. There will not be their ideal Republican ever winning an election if Donald Trump loses to Kamala Harris. So, you talk about who's the threat to the country, threat to the republic. It's not Donald Trump. It's not. If you ask them what the problem with Trump is, they either repeat some, lie from the left, or that something incoherent. Oh, national security. Well, what's national security about the country being invaded by 20 million illegals? There's nothing that's benefiting national security about that at all. Nothing. Sam Madsen says, driving through rural Wisconsin, it has the worst broadband of any state by far. Does that explain why it's so hard to pull? Probably. It's that driftless area in western Wisconsin. They keep missing it. And down ballot, it's a little bit more blue. But come presidential years, Donald Trump is running it up like crazy in that part of the country. Patriot 345 says, this is like the Biden surge in April. I expect Harris polls to tie down after the DNC or after the debate on September 10, RELAX. It's true. People need to relax. But we need to just support Trump and get the hype back. It's the people's fault, why social media is the way it is. The left is energized. The right's acting like, since the left is energized, that they have to not match the energy. No, you should be matching the energy. You're letting them engage in psychological warfare, and they probably are benefiting somewhat off of that, at least on the internet. But the real world's different. People. Probably there's a good chunk of the world that barely knows who Kamala Harris is. And maybe that'd be a problem if she ends up doing better than we think as of now. But the more they get to know Kamala, the less they're going to like her. That's why she's not doing interviews. It's true. Cypher says, hypothetically, how would Tim Walz dropping out affect the campaign? Well, it's chaos. And this is the same thing I tell people that say, oh, Vance, if Vance is hurting the ticket, he should drop out. But it just makes you look like you got a lot of chaos on your hands. You don't want a Eagleton 1972 type of situation happening. And obviously, it would basically prove that Harris has no judgment. And if that's something that she wants to do, she's going to be vulnerable to a lot of attacks on that. Holtzy O says, Fuentes is a joke. No one IRL likes him. Well, very few people IRL know. Like, if you poll these people, like even people like Tim Pool, who are more well known, if people on the internet, everybody knows, IRL, their name recognition's not exactly super high. The average normie conservative has no idea who this guy is, and that's that would kind of be partially explaining it. But it's a silent majority. Very few people are gonna go after him even on the internet, because they've got a lot of people that they are very loud. People, maybe a couple thousand, that are just constantly like the keyboard warriors or something. It's not the only group that's got that level of following that does stuff like that, but definitely it's one of them. Ash K2 says, with RFK on the ballot, Texas. Yes, totally. Texas is going to go blue. You're right. You got it. RFK Jr. is going to totally flip Texas blue. It's over. Pack it in. We're losing. There's no reason to watch the content anymore. Oh, these people, man. The funny thing is, RFK Jr. at this point might slightly eat into Trump's margins, but it's again, Trump is going to win Texas by probably, I would say, closer to his 2016 margin than 2020. I mean, you have the border, You've got Harris just being an awful fit. Her oil stances, they're awful. They're a train wreck, folks. They're disastrous. Jimmy Payne says, what is your opinion on Kamala paying people to support her? 150. If those ads of the rally, because they might not be real, but if they are real, it doesn't matter. If they are, like, first of all, she's not paying people to vote for her. If you pay rally attendees, she's wasting campaign funds. That's what she's doing. She's wasting campaign funds. But we just should, like, who cares? There are 20,000 liberals in a lot of these places. Bernie Sanders had crowds of, Trump-like crowds in many places. Didn't really mean he was able to go win that primary. So if Harris is going to energize the far left, that's probably a bad thing because it means that she's not going to get a lot of independents on her side. And these polls don't show her doing that. So Intrinsic Dark says, what do you think about the Pennsylvania election Twitter statement claiming we won't know election day results the same day? Well, we already knew that was going to be the case. We might not get a call on election day. I mean, 2022, they were better than 2020. I don't think it's going to take 4 or 5 days to count, but no, it's true. Pennsylvania does usually take about a couple days. It's a close state, especially now, and we got to reform the system. Doesn't mean we can't win. Doesn't mean we can't win, but it is true that these states are probably in some cases going to take a while. They will come down to the wire. We might not know the winner again, but that doesn't mean that we can't win. Honestly, I think Josh Shapiro, if anything, wants Trump to win, the governor, because he wants to be the savior in 28. I mean, you could argue the same thing with Whitmer over in Michigan. Why do you think he didn't want to be VP? Part of it is because, they might have decided not to pick him, but also because of the fact that I don't even know if he wanted it. So many people turned down the VP. I've heard things behind the scenes. We're talking a couple dozen people who are more qualified than Walz who said no. And some of them we know publicly, like Roy Cooper, Gretchen Whitmer, you name it. So Carolyn McNay says, I'm born and raised in the Bay Area in Alameda County. She was never popular here. I remember her 2020 run, and my high school classmates and I did not like her. Exactly. We can't let a memory hold that. 2010 was an election statewide. She only got 46% of the vote. That's abysmal for a Democrat in California. And the third parties were not even liberal third parties. So that's not an excuse. LinRX52 for $50 says, appreciate what you do. Thoughts on the most important issues to focus on when sharing top 3 issues, ways to motivate people to do help. Well, if you're talking about the issues, like politically speaking, I think that immigration and the economy, and you could argue crime or foreign policy, it depends who you're talking to, what your audience is for sure. But those are the main 3 overall that affect everybody. And strength. We want strength back in the White House. We're not going to get it with Kamala Harris. It's true. You're not going to get it. Also, ways to motivate people to help. I think you got to get people should just download the phone banking app and also consult their local state parties if they live in a swing state so they can get a volunteer position, knocking doors, doing whatever they need to do. Hold up. Hitman Zarelli says, what's your opinion on Washington's 4th district? Jared getting 31%. Dan's getting 24.1% of the vote on Ballotpedia. I think that Dan Newhouse could lose the general. It would not surprise me. It's not a guarantee, but he could. Democrats are going to vote for him, but by what margin? Probably not enough for him to win with Trump on the ballot, in my opinion. Ice Cream Junkie says, should Nebraska and Maine drop their proportional method of awarding electoral votes? Should more states switch? I think Nebraska should drop theirs and Maine should keep theirs because it benefits us. But yeah, I think it's dumb. I don't want any more states doing it. I'd rather have both of them just drop it than expand it to other states. Scott B says, how do you make sure your vote is tallied right? Well, just you could track your vote online. There's like websites. I don't know the exact website, but you can do that. And I tell people, vote early. Ideally, if you can make it early in person, it's better than waiting until election day because you don't know what happens. But you could track your vote and see if it gets counted. And if it doesn't get counted, that's a huge, huge problem for sure. Byron 8899 says, when people say Trump is a racist, they don't mean it literally. They mean that he doesn't support the woke progress. Yeah, exactly. Like they call black people white supremacists all the time. because it's about ideology. It's not about treating somebody differently. Trump has got, obviously, like, they're like, well, you can't say that you're not racist if you have a black friend because you could still be racist. It's like, that's, I mean, technically, it's technically true. But at the end of the day, what they're just like, if you treat people well overall, but you just actively say something that contradicts the ideology, that you get hit with the label. You know, that's the problem. I don't like using terms like that because they're dumb. By that logic, most normal people, in their view, are racist. Everyone's racist. It's like, I don't care what they call me. You shouldn't care what they call you. It's just a buzzword they throw out on the table. You know, it doesn't matter what you say. J.D. Vance is right. You call you racist for drinking Mountain Dew. People got mad at him for that, even on the right. They're like, oh, this is like, he's going to have gaffes. And then it's like, wait a minute. They actually wrote an article in The Atlantic calling him racist for drinking Mountain Dew and saying Mountain Dew is the white soda. It's like an actual article. Look it up. It's insane. It's insane. But I don't care. They're going to hit people with labels. We need to not try to justify it to them. Oh, we're not actually racist. Because no, it's just a waste of time. You know, just say, I don't care what you call me. It doesn't matter. You're deranged. You're a clown. Let's see. Hectorine for 10 says, hey, Rep, if Trump wins by a slim margin, you think Dems will challenge the key results in states claim fraud from Russia and ironically commit Dem 1-6? I don't know about what's going to happen, but you're right. I mean, it's true. Democrats are not going to accept the results of the election if Trump wins for some reason or another. They didn't even in 2016. They had massive riots that got memory hold for some reason. But, one incident from the right, it's worse than 9/11, according to these people. But no, I know. People are not going to accept the results of the election no matter who wins, regardless of there being enough shenanigans or not. You can just write that down right now on either side in any future election as well. Evan Daignault says RFK should drop out and endorse Trump would be nice. Not sure how it moves. Yeah, I agree. Clay Franklin says, thanks for fighting the good fight. I think Trump is going to win all his 2016 states plus Nevada. It's possible. We'll see. My next prediction probably is going to get a little bit closer, but I still have Trump winning for the record. And it just could be a temporary drop. We'll see. Seeking Findings says, bank your vote, vote early, make a plan, and vote 20% inflation, open borders. That is all they have. Vote. It's true. Samuel Harrison says, is the horse thing real with Walz? It's 100% as real as the couch thing is with J.D. Vance. So do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. Did he actually have his stomach pumped because he ate too much horse semen? I don't know. You'll have to do the math on that. But it's 100% as real as J.D. Vance having relations with a couch cushion. So if they want to say that, we could say this. You got everybody memeing about it. Don Jr. is memeing about it. Antonio Brown is memeing about it. It's pretty big. But yeah, it just is what it is. Fighting fire with fire in the meme wars in that department. But one of those is apparently weird, and the other one is just funny, and they think is true. But no, it's true. Like, I have people even on the right, they're saying, did he actually have sex with the couch? And I'm like, wait, what? Is this actually something people believe? And the answer is yes, people believe it. But the funny thing I've noticed is they don't care. They think it's kind of funny. So it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. But let's see. We'll look at regular chat. How is Trump struggling against someone that was the most unfavorable VP ever? Because you're seeing a response bias. We've seen polls that show Harris is like better on the economy. I don't believe that. I really don't believe it. She might do better than Biden on the economy because she's like less tied to the inflation. But even so, part of it is her not being defined quite yet. And the media is not really able to define her. People are like, well, Trump's not defining her. Well, the media is not really defining her either, for the record. I agree he's got to do that, and I think that he kind of is to a certain extent, but we got to see what happens. Because she's defining herself as a fraud. John Waffle, H2P says, what if Kushner, Cheney, Bush, both Cheneys all show up at the DNC to endorse Harris? Well, Kushner was at the RNC. Kushner is part of Trump's family. He's not going to endorse Harris. Cheney, And Bush, no, I don't think they'll endorse Harris either. Maybe Liz Cheney will, but even then, that's iffy. I don't know. I do think that the Bushes, no, they'll stay out of it. Even if they secretly support her, they're going to stay out of it. Die for Oil says, do you think the rumors that Walz will resign hold any weight? I don't know. It depends. Honestly, I think that we should probably, I wouldn't say stop the attacks entirely, but just ease off a little bit until the VP debate because of what's going on. Mr. Jimmy says, we need Trump to win because I don't want cackling word salad Kamala Harris to preside and make a speech at the 2026 World Cup and the 28 Olympics. No, it's true. And not only that, the 250th anniversary of our country. Do you want her or Donald John America being the one? Like, that's the only argument you need. That's the thing. This woman's a clown. Eric from Wisconsin says, hard to define Kamala when she hasn't even put an agenda out on her website. Also true. Test Channel Wow says, spoiler, white women will get Kamala elected. Well, I mean, we'll see about that. You're going to see a very large educational divide and gender divide, especially in the younger age ranges. But older, like, look, there's this misconception about every single white woman in the suburbs is a pushover, and it's like not entirely true. It's mainly the younger college-educated ones, and then you also have the older, like the married white women are voting for Trump by a sizable margin, and we know that. But you do have a lot of liberals, but like there's not that many like, oh, I was a former Republican under Romney and then I voted for Clinton and I keep voting against Trump. Like that type of voter is very overrated in terms of their presence. A lot of it is demographic changes in the suburbs, and I'm not just talking about racially. It's also like it's also educationally of younger generations as well. We got let's see. Vince Dow in chat saying women also don't like other women. People underestimate. No, it's true. It's true. Ash K2 says if Trump loses, the GOP needs to remove the MAGA. You're not winning without the MAGA faction. I'm not voting for a GOP run by Adam Kinzinger. You can kiss my vote goodbye. So do what you will with that information. This guy is just, he's got to be trolling at this point. There's no way. Roman Wolf Gaming says Trump needs to visit Hawaii, Virginia, New Hampshire, New Jersey. And let's focus on the swing states as of right now. The stream is lagging. There's no lag on my end, at least. I don't know if the people in chat, it could be. Let's see. Kai says Trump should campaign as if he's 10 points behind. It doesn't have to be that extreme. I think it should just be like 2 points behind or 3 points behind. But yeah, we have the Ethernet cable plugged in. It shouldn't be lagging too much. We should be good. But some people say not anymore. I don't know. This will be the last call for Super Chat. So if you have any Super Chats, now's the time to send them in. We'll go for about 5 more minutes, and then we'll probably end it. I know it's getting late on the East Coast. It's a Sunday night. But I wanted to stream because it's been a while. Zoo Angus says, do you support expanding the electoral map? I think that we have to win the election, and I think we got to lock down the main 7 is what I like to call it. If things implode for Harris and we can expand to Virginia, that's great. Expand to Minnesota, that would be hilarious given their governor's on the ticket. I guarantee you rural Minnesota turnout might be super high for Trump just because Walz is on the ticket. It'll be against Walz. Krishan Lal for 10 says there's a reason why the Dems were so hesitant to run Kamala earlier in the year. Once people hear her in an unscripted event, things will change. Also, congrats on having your poll recognized by Trump. Well, thank you. I actually have that framed in my closet next to my silver play button. I printed it out. I got a print done for it just because I thought it was cool. Hopefully the result on the poll comes true. Apex Caliber says, how does Virginia look with paper ballots? I mean, we'll see. I think Virginia's going to get closer, but I don't think it's necessarily just because of that. LB says, we need Trump to replace Alito and Clarence Thomas. I agree. Roman Wolf Gaming says, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania you don't need if you get one, though. Yeah, all we need is Pennsylvania and Georgia. Or you could do Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, or Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada. That'll get you there. Let's see. Ice Cream Junkie says, do you think Republicans can hold the House? If Trump wins, they probably will. If not, it's going to be close. Just depends on how close the election is. Depends on how close New York is as well. John Waffle H2P says, we need to take back Virginia, the home of Washington, Jefferson, Madison, Monroe. We need to get rid of the CIA clowns. I agree. Got to drain the swamp. Trump should probably talk a little bit more about that down the stretch. In terms of the 2016 messaging, there was a lot of drain the swamp. As of now, you don't hear that part you don't hear as much. Now, I will say that people might misconstrue if he starts talking about it. They'll be like, why didn't you do it the first time? And you get into that, spitting match about it. Felipe Kairos is the Union forever, no Lord but God. Kaiser of Third H says, I do agree with Tim Pool on the fact that the weird title needs to be countered with Trump's policies. It will work on the North. Well, that's what Vance did in the interview today. I agree. Just saying oh, no, we're not weird. It's a waste of time. They are the real weird ones, and that's true, which is ironic, but I know you are, but what am I stuff is not gonna win people over or change that narrative. So we gotta counter it a little bit better. But we'll probably end, let's see, 2 minutes. We'll end in 2 minutes. One poll matters, November 5th. That part is true. Will I stream November 4th? You mean November 5th? I guess I might do a election eve stream on November 4th, but I will absolutely be streaming on November 5th. John Waffle, H2P says, should be number 1 on Project 25. If you're talking about draining the swamp, I agree. I agree with a lot of Project 25. I just don't think Trump distancing himself from the document in the intermediary was an issue because it's not his agenda. But, I like the staffing aspect. I hope they can revisit that when the time comes. John Campbell says, feel like Trump can lock up Wisconsin. It's 50-50 in Pennsylvania. Georgia scares the shit out of me with 2020 and the Senate runoffs were not good indicators. They were not good indicators. I also don't think they're good. The Senate runoffs, all 3 of them actually, are not really good indicators for the presidential election, though, in a way that is good for Trump. But Georgia, yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on down there at 3 a.m. in Georgia. I don't know the full extent of it, but I definitely know that stuff went down. Colin Shaw Indie Game says, have you read or watched I've watched Hillbilly Elegy. A couple of years ago, before Vance won the primary, I was like, that guy's going to end up being senator, and he was. And he was not favored in the primary at the time, but he was gaining steam. But yeah, I thought it was a good movie. Of course, it's one of those things where the expert score is a lot lower than the audience score. And there's a lot of people that know Vance just because of that and probably are going to, if they're independents, that might actually sway them over to Trump's side. You never know. You never know. Love most about Project 25 states, not crazy about the stuff that impacts you. Yeah, exactly. You can't expect Trump to embrace something that says get rid of entitlements because that's never been Trump's thing. So I think that they handled things poorly in terms of doing this policy document. Because if they kept that under wraps, then there's no need to disavow. But that was their Hail Mary that they try to get Trump on. And they don't even talk about it that much anymore. Kurt Salak says, why did the Rust Belt New York Times poll sample 2020 Biden +6? Well, because I think it's response bias. And they can't wait for that entirely, and they didn't wait for that part. But I think it's just they really struggle to poll the Rust Belt. Pennsylvania, they're a little bit better at, but the rest of the states, not so much. And maybe it was with Biden a little bit different. Maybe Biden was actually, I think Biden was still being underestimated, or Trump was being underestimated in Wisconsin against Biden as well. Boris Davitsky says, could you stream the Tuesday primary? I will stream on Tuesday. Don't worry. LB says, how do you think DeSantis would have done against Kamala? Honestly, not as good. Look, people need to understand this, is that it doesn't matter what Republican you put up. This is a turnout apparatus. The Democrats are going to probably get 70-some million voters out for Kamala. You need a superstar to counter that effectively. This is not a midterm year. This is not an off-year election. High turnout presidential election. Democrats have that NPC base. They will make them believe DeSantis is Mussolini but awkward and wearing heels or whatever. All the attacks Trump used were pretty tame and light, but those would be amplified in a general election against DeSantis. I don't really think he's all that strong. I used to think he could compete, but I mean, when you're on the national stage like that and you flame out, he lost a lot of his initial support because people eventually saw the product and they didn't like it. It was not as advertised. He starts off polling in Iowa in the 30s and then he ends up getting, 21%. That's malpractice on his part. Trump barely campaigned in Iowa. We were told by DeSantis' supporters DeSantis would pull it an upset victory in Iowa. It never happened. But that's enough primary talk. The primary is over and people need to unite behind Trump. I'll say that. That includes a lot of bitter DeSimp holdouts on social media. But what can I say? They're not real life. DeSantis supporters in real life all pretty much went to Trump. A lot of them had a favorable view of Trump in the Iowa caucus exit polls. Haley voters, a little bit of a different story, but a lot of them never voted for Trump in the first place. So let's see. All right, we're going to end the show. Make sure you guys like the stream before you go. Subscribe, hit the bell, follow me on social media. Links are all in the description down below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.